Brigadier General Jaroslaw Strozyk is an adjunct professor at the University of Wrocław. He previously served as Director of Analyses at the Polish Military Intelligence Service, also as a NATO Deputy Intelligence Director. Brigadier General, thank you so much indeed for your time. Were you able to hear that short clip that we just played of Andreas, who said that he understands that the use of a tactical nuclear weapon is a realistic option for Vladimir Putin? Would you agree?
Good morning, and thank you. Thank you for invitation. I heard this message from Sweden, and I could only agree. I mean, at this stage, we cannot exclude any option. That's the reality since 24th of January, and that's set. That's true. But we have to think that Vladimir Putin is, let's say, on some occasions doing something against the logic and sometimes perhaps out of his mind. And this is the option on the table. And let's remind ourselves that this option was exercised. I mean, this tactical nuclear attack was always exercised during the Russian exercises, especially a Zapad, which means a West in Russian. Zapad exercises every 4 years since 2009. Exactly, tactical nuclear weapon was used to de-escalate the conflict, meaning escalate to de-escalate. So this is on the table, and things change. We are living in, let's say, making the history, or Mr. Putin is making the history, and we cannot exclude, unfortunately, anything.
Do you think that this military action ordered by Vladimir Putin has been a huge intelligence failure by any country that opposes Moscow? When you look at what the director of the CIA has been telling a congressional hearing in Washington, and of course everybody knows that intelligence services make these analyses of the personalities of world leaders. And William Burns says that this action is a deep personal conviction of Vladimir Putin's. And he goes on to say that the Russian president has been stewing in a combustible combination of grievance and ambition for many years. That suggests that this should have been foreseen and should have been acted upon possibly years ago.
Yes and not. To a certain extent, we can always predict some issues. But on the other hand, people are changing. On the other hand, I would say we should watch some even documentaries which were made by Russians, especially the Putin witnesses from 2018. And I strongly recommend this to watch for everybody by Mr. Mansky, who was his personal kind of movie maker. And he shot so many documentaries. The footage is really a great, I mean, to analyze Mr. Putin's behavior, his personal thoughts 20 years ago, and how he changed. And he is changing constantly. So that's why I come back to my first message. We cannot exclude anything, unfortunately. On the other hand, I still believe that he receives some real information from abroad, and he is not a lunatic to do whatever he wants. And there is still some kind of entourage, some Russian circles around him, to include some oligarchs, and they can convince him to stop. That's not easy, how to go back to Russia. But he can do this still on his own terms, I believe, to save his face. I don't believe he might be, let's say, taken out of his post, but that's, I believe, another story.
Do you think that's more likely, that Vladimir Putin realizes that he's made a misstep? Do you think that's more likely than actually increasing the attacks? Western intelligence is also saying that almost all of the 150,000 Russian troops that have been placed along the border with Ukraine are now inside Ukrainian territory. So what does he do with those soldiers? Or is he more likely, as you've suggested, to possibly be persuaded to make some sort of withdrawal?
Even as I spoke, that he's sometimes doing something insane a bit. he is still, I believe, somehow reasonable, and he knows a lot about his troops. He knows that he lost so many soldiers. We have to undermine that he lost about different, let's say, numbers, but about 5,000 soldiers so far in 12 days. So this is like 1/3 of the number the Soviet Union lost for about 9 years in Afghanistan. This is twice as big as US lost soldiers in Afghanistan. So this is a huge social tragedy. And now this message is coming back to Russia. So he thinks how to, if you ask what's his, let's say, opinion, I believe that he's thinking much more how to end this conflict, how to make a truce, because he already achieved some of his goals. He destroyed Ukraine to a certain extent, the economy, the country, the people who fled, and now he is destroying also some neighbors, to include Poland, because of the humanitarian crisis. In 1 week, or in those 12 days, as I spoke, Poland received 1.4 million refugees from Ukraine. So it's much more than even the crisis of 2015, migration crisis to Europe, which was, if I'm not mistaken, 1.2 million people across the year. So this is a huge effort for not only for Poland, but for European Union. So he's doing two goals at the same time.
Absolutely. Brigadier General, thank you so much indeed for the analysis. Really, really interesting to hear your thoughts. Jaroslaw Strozyk speaking to us from Wrocław.